Here we are. We're back again to cover Season 2. Trying to carry over what we have learned from Season 1 is going to be a bit of a challenge. I think many would consider this to be the emotional or narrative epicenter of Phineas and Ferb as a whole. This is easily where some of the greatest, the most legendary episodes came from. In general, the show just really found its footing here and it never looked back. Especially the first 2/3 of the season, they share a fair amount of similarities with the season before, but it easily scales everything up. Even if you have a weak episode on your hands, you're getting something out of it that you wouldn't have gotten out of it before. So this is going to be an interesting endeavor. If you haven't caught up with the Season 1 ranking, I would recommend you go finish that before you continue with this. We've got well over 60 episodes to go through, so I'm not gonna drag this out any longer. This is the official Phineas and Ferb Season 2 ranking. Yeah, the month is pretty much over, but we must press on.
Emergency power on.
So much for getting proof. What was that? Did we find the lake nose monster?
No. It found us.
Overall, just a good time. This is technically considered the Season 2 opener, and in isolation, you probably wouldn't even be able to tell that it is considered part of Season 2. It still has that heavy character focus. 90% of this is just Phineas, Ferb, and this giant monster. It's cute, it's adorable. It is not at all a rehash of the Mummy joint. They actually succeed at what they set out to do, and B, they forge like a real friendship with this creature. Though watching Candace go through all her lifeguard shit is easily one of the funniest things I've ever seen come out of this franchise. 3 shows, 4 seasons, 2 movies, like it doesn't matter. There's like real, tangible, palpable fear. You can see it. You can see it in her eyes. They did such a good job with this one. I think it actually kind of fleshed her out as a character more. And of course her decision towards the climax was pretty good. Like seeing that. I don't see how you can push this episode aside. I mean, it gave you shit like big laundry. I think honestly, if I had a choice, I would probably be spending all my time in this underwater base just listening to Heinz ramble on about all of his exploits. Either that or listening to Lawrence tell stories in a boat for an afternoon. Seems like a pretty chill time. I think that I would elevate this one a bit higher than most people, though I do genuinely consider it to be a really strong episode. Pretty forgettable, to be honest. It's a perfect day as a bop, though. The montage is just beautiful. I think I would have been fixing to acquire a Boat, whether Danville was flooded or not. It's just me, maybe. Seems like a really innovative product. Also, this was a prime busting opportunity, and Linda did not take the bait. She had no reason to ask why this giant machine is in the backyard. I mean, it's not as garish as like a roller coaster or an aquarium or whatever. But don't you think you should have some questions about that? What's going on here?
I had to send this to Jeremy and Jenny, the track team, Chicago Joe.
So, Candace, smart word box find name shoelace tip?
What else is there to say? This one is a slam diggity dunk. The premise, spot on. The progression of the plot, super engaging, really gets you sucked in. Doof's side of the story, excellent, immaculate even. I'm gonna run defense for Candace and say that she was kind of justified here, and that really none of this matters, and that she was in peak form here. It's firing on all cylinders. I feel like this is, when you think about this point of the show, this is the type of episode you think of. Admittedly, I think people have kind of run this one thin. You know, I love the song. Everyone throws this one on occasion, but along with like that collection of songs from Season 1, there's only like a few songs that anybody who grew up with this show will reference, and it's kind of frustrating. Because again, I mean, I don't think it's overrated or anything. It's earned its spot in the Hall of Fame, but there are plenty of other songs that y'all don't even talk about. There is a reason why this one is so hard to shake. It is an iconic episode through and through.
So did you win the giant watermelon contest?
I was about to when this happened. friend!
So the watermelon shrank?
Well, either that or everything else in the universe just got bigger.
This one's definitely not too shabby, though early on I did note that I enjoyed looking at it much more than I did watching it. Not to say the story was weak or anything, but the visuals just had a different personality here. You know, what could it be? It could be the direction or the timing or... I mean, Moncrief episodes always looked immaculate, but this is a little different. I don't know. The movement design is definitely a bit disparate. Regular character acting moves slower than usual, but it's also bouncier, especially in the face. It hasn't looked like this since the first few episodes. As it turns out, this was the first episode handled by Synergy Animation. Working on the rest of the series up to the bitter end, it ended up becoming a legacy studio of sorts that served all three of the current Dwampyverse cartoons. Their episodes of Hamster and Gretel are basically the platinum standard. They make that shit watchable. I'm not gonna put the other studio on blast. It's not really their fault, I don't think, but Synergy is carrying that shit across the finish line. Having figured that out, the main thing that stood out to me from a narrative perspective was the tent scene. You know the one. Certainly not the first, but this is also a Candace has to deal with her own self-worth episode. They had a very silly way of framing it, but this one really seemed to stick with her. I can respect it. The only thing I didn't vibe with was the shame curtains joke, but that's kind of par for the course. The underpants one is recurring for a little while longer. This one's just restricted to an episode, so I should be thankful, but really I'm not. The Baljeet glow-up is imminent. Just you wait. Just you wait.
Well, I guess Goldie and her friends are headed to the ocean.
Well, you know what they say. If you love something, set it free.
Yeah, we do that every day with Perry.
Instead of making our main protagonist more human, this one takes the opposite approach in making our protagonist look less so. This is like the most positive person within a 50-mile radius. But this first minute or two just like turns him into a saint. He's elevated. He's canonized officially because of his love for this goldfish. I can't handle it. Oh, by the way, the next stretch of episodes is mainly Synergy territory, and they are some of the best looking batches of the entire show. I can't tell you which is best, but next to the first segment, it's a toss-up for sure. For me, it was the dolphin sequence that really cemented it for me.
That's the spirit, Candace. Everybody.
I guess we shouldn't be encouraging the capture of wild animals for mindless entertainment, but it's not immediately imitable, so S&P should be okay with that. Divorce, on the other hand, the dog duel is pretty hype. It's been a hot minute since a scuffle at DEI was this fast-paced, but I love it. Spawned many memorable memes.
It's as fun to eat as the crazy fun things you can do with it.
The cartilaginous fibers from the bovine patella structure that gelatin's extracted from gives it that fun, bouncy quality.
What did I tell you? Weird.
Honestly, I would like to say this has been one of the most mind-numbing experiences that I've ever had with this franchise, but that's not really fair. We've got a mid-ass song and a mid-ass premise. Not much more. Anytime anyone wants to talk about this show's songs online, guarantee there's gonna be that one person that's like, oh man, they had a banger every episode. I guarantee you, nobody is throwing this one on in the middle of the road trip. Nobody. Nobody. Try to find them. That person does not exist. They're imaginary. They're illusion. They're made up in your mind because this song is not worthy of being put on. It's not really that deep. I mean, it's just a mid-song.
Looks like Candace and Stacy did some shopping.
I'll never understand fashion.
I didn't find this to be much of a step up compared to its paired up episode. I did like seeing the girls going out and exploring this new environment and such, but otherwise it's just kind of drab. The fake James Bond was actually kind of holding it down. Him barely bouncing off of Perry was kind of a highlight, to be honest. You have two different types of stoic characters. You have one that's bouncing off the walls and trying to solve this case, and Perry's he's just soaking all of this in. How ridiculous this picture is. The invention rightfully takes a backseat here, but at the same time there's not much occupying that space that would normally be there. Solely serviceable, not really for me though.
Well, we were all watching it, and quantum theory states that the mere observation of an experiment changes its outcome.
Now you tell me.
It's pretty memorable. I think visually it's easier to recall the vibe of this one than not. The way that the shot with the paint can was directed is just masterful. It's hilarious every single time. I don't have much else to say about it other than it's a pretty engaging watch.
Platypus-themed restaurants are so 4 hours ago. Let's bail.
Cool. Yeah! I haven't eaten a badger in a week.
Let's go.
The public is fickle.
Bro, I will never forgive them for doing what they did to this man. I'm so serious. I will take this anger to the grave. There is no way that this is acceptable. He deserves love. He's trying his best. Did you see that whole montage they had? They were ready to spend the rest of their lives together. This was his moment. This was it, man. I don't think there will ever be another person in his life that can harmonize that well with him. It is a straight up tragedy that they chose to end the episode like this. Their restaurant's okay, I guess. I don't really care. The whole bit with Buford as the bouncer, you know, it's a little funny. Gets a light little haha. But that's it. I'm just consumed with rage.
Huh? It was just a bird?
That's not just any bird. That's a rare whale song singing double-breasted angle hooper. The natural enemy of the platypus in the wild.
This one is just really earnest. The fact that all three of these kids are just ready to raise these weird platypus kids, it just captures the soul in a way. And honestly, I think Candace had the right idea. Totally get why she freaked out the way she did. Though honestly, I would argue that Doof's side of the story is even stronger. I think this is genuinely one of the best ideas he's ever had. I like that he can advocate for himself now, even if it is in the most benign or petty ways. Definitely kind of takes some of the sting away from the previous episode. But in a general sense, you know, this is just peak Doof.
Oh no! Jeremy's here! How am I going to get ready in 3 seconds?
Apparently, do what we did.
The way that Let's Go Digital is animated has always captivated me. It's so bouncy, it's so flexible. I can't keep my eyes off it. Why they go so hard with this one? Damn. I'm very surprised that More of an Autumn is not referenced more. That seems like a prime Doof quote, to be honest. Has a pretty simple premise, but it definitely makes the most of it.
It's pulling us in. Maybe it's the space authorities. Did we do something wrong?
Well, it occurs to me that perhaps not all of the modifications I made are technically street legal.
Man, they did not know they were opening Pandora's box with this one. Honestly, considering how cracked out its sequel is, I really don't think we need a Meet Me in St. Louis. But you know they're gonna do it anyway. These two entries barely compare to each other. This is pretty much the first major integration of aliens within the Dwampyverse, as we would call it. Yeah, Out to Launch featured the whole milkshake bar and everything. But this is the first time I think they had a tangible role and impact on the stories told in this universe. Big Mitch is he's kinda slept on, I'm gonna be honest with you. He's kind of a badass. Like, divorced from the whole Cutonium subplot, I need to see more of him. Give us more. Despite the stakes that are thrown in this time, it doesn't feel as self-directed as it probably could. Like, at times it just kind of feels like stuff happening. The half-hour special. That's not a bad thing, you know, you do need some atmospheric establishment at times. And it doesn't drag or anything. But it does create a wider disparity between this and its third season counterpart. And don't even get me started on Isabella's subplot. I know it's not important enough to be considered one, I'm calling it that anyway, because oh my god. You know, I don't think it's crazy for her to have reacted the way she did the entire way through. Call her a simp if you want. You're wrong. You're just wrong. The last time she wanted to ask this man a question, she had to share space with like 96 other persons, places, and things. I think it's reasonable for her to just want this one. He's not aware of it. But he should really just give her this one, you know? Highly memorable, highly respectable, just all around a good fucking time.
Gummy.
Please.
Look, I know they weren't doing anything revolutionary with this one, but it always gets me. This is peak content. I need more Danny Cooksey antagonism in my cartoons. I need it now. I'm low-key disappointed that these two weren't made recurring characters. I don't think they needed to challenge them every time. I just think you could have gotten some good one-liners off of them. Come on. They appear 3 other times in the entire course of the run, and one of them was in a clip show format. Enjoy that lack of presence. Personally, I would like to believe that the licorice dispenser line was sarcastic, but the world may never know. We'll just have to learn to live with the mystery.
All right, Ferb, let's go through our pre-flight checklist. Pilot's instruments? Check. Co-pilot's instruments?
Check.
This one's just very pleasant. Not overwhelming in any sense, but it just has a very mellow vibe to it. Song, of course, is an underappreciated banger that will never be vindicated by time. Peanut Chicken destroys me every time I encounter it. I don't really know why, but it does. Easily one of the most memorable gags of the season. Other than maybe the song, I think the end credits is really my personal highlight for the episode. Not exactly hidden depths, but it's a pleasant cap to a very pleasant episode.
Our game show set instantaneously miniaturized itself.
Well, I suppose we could call that the home version.
This episode to me is emblematic of the whole tone of the show. It's one of the 5 or 6 stories that pop up in my mind when I think of it. There's not much really even going on. It's just a game show. But the fast-paced nature of it, this is where the show was at.
Pocket lint! Laminate! Dolomite! Porpoise! Trowelfash! Trowelfash? That's right, Trowelfash! Fine, Trowelfash!
Ooh, bonus!
You can tell. You don't understand anything going on, but you can tell exactly what type of headspace they were in. The duo responsible for coming up with the story for this one are also responsible for creating Gamer's Guide to pretty much everything. Also, they wrote 10 episodes of Zeke and Luther, and I think that says about as much as needs to be said.
We'll build the best dang car wash in the whole dang world, dang it. I can't really pull that off, can I?
You're not very street.
Yeah.
Doof's Nader for the day is actually kind of metaphysical, you know? It's symbolic of his entire journey. He is constantly making mountains out of molehills, but nobody understands that their molehills were always going to be his mountains, and they just can't see past that. It's actually really poetic. I remember this one being a lot more colorful. Not like they changed up the color palette or anything, it's just, it has a brighter feel to it. I don't know how to explain it. Pretty fun, all things considered.
Wow, I didn't know there were so many platypuses in Danville.
I don't think it needs to be said. This one is a major Perry joint with a peak song, and one of the most satisfying conclusions to any episode. Top 25, easily. You're gonna disagree, but I really see it as the turning point. This is the first real confirmation that Agent P sees his host family as a real one. There have been times before where he definitely prioritized the boys, times where he had done things for his family, just out of the kindness of his heart. But there was real abject pain on his face leaving. Even if he weren't as stoic as he is, he just hasn't given us many chances to see into his soul. And I really felt that here. What more can really be said?
You're giving a monkey a shower?
Yep, had to be done.
Okay, making monkeys wash clothes inside of a volcano is unironically one of the most evil things this man has ever put into fruition. You know Love Muffin wasn't keeping score at this point, cause what the fuck is this? The list of crimes is endless. That treehouse is really cool. I doubt this was intentional, but the way they reincorporated the slingshot idea is very choice. Overall, it's alright. I would consider it to be, I guess, mid-deluxe, with some entertaining pieces along the way.
Irving suggested hide and seek. Isn't the house a little small to play a good game of hide and seek?
Perhaps the problem is not that the house is too small, but that we're too big.
He's right.
This one's pretty alright. I think it has more legs to stand on than I initially thought. Apparently, this is Irving's first appearance within the show. He's a landmark character, clearly. Everybody loves this guy. I mean, if I'm being honest here, I think this is possibly his strongest appearance. See, the thought process behind his reception is kind of interesting to dissect. I have never personally hated Irving. I'm pretty neutral at this point, though there are several times where I could recall thinking, I don't like this character. Of course, Irving is kind of holding up a mirror to some of us in a way. He is the person that you know you could have been, or maybe at one point actually was. If you were a little kid that fucked with this show heavy, this might have been you at some point. And that probably scares you right now. But just imagine how you felt as a kid seeing this in real time. Ironically, I think he's at his least disruptive here. Like, he invited himself over. I don't even think the other parents know who he is, but he did it. Apparently, he was not the only one that debuted here, because this episode also marks the first appearance of a very prominent storyboard artist named Kaz. Kaz is one of many SpongeBob alumni that have come and shaped this show. I would say more generally, he has boarded some of my favorite episodes from either series, and I heavily associate his work with really out there, kooky, and zany stuff. It's hard to pin down a very specific brand of weirdness within Phineas and Ferb, and I would say that the same applies to him, but his roster of work on the show does speak to the strength of his stylings and how well he understands this universe. It's just kind of something you gotta see in the wild to really understand. This one is not among my favorites, but I would recommend giving it a watch. Compared to similar episodes of its ilk, this one easily holds my attention the longest, and in general, it has some interesting shit to present.
My, she's yar. Is she ready to sail?
She's ship-shape in Bristol fashion.
What does that mean?
What does yar mean?
This one establishes a lot of important Baljeet lore, because the whole point of him is for him to experience summer from a different angle. But we don't even know really what angle he started off with. So it's nice to see that balanced out with somebody else from his past. It's a literal ship tease in 2 different directions. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. This one was released a few months after Meep, and based on how that one went, you would probably assume that they're gonna drag this one out for all it's worth. But nah, they didn't, and the way that they capped things off was really nice, actually. I'm gonna be real with you, I'm still kind of mad about the model. I mean, he worked all weekend on that. It's just cruel and unusual, you know? You couldn't let him keep the model. You couldn't let him have this one, could you?
Is everything okay?
If by okay you mean that my life is a meaningless black cauldron of swirling failure, then yes, everything is groovy.
That's not at all what I meant by okay.
Peak Baljeet episode that introduces a peak song. By no means would anyone consider it to be underrated, but I still don't understand why they left this off of the main albums. It's practically one of my catchphrases now, because they did it often enough, we were left to wonder. Most people already know this one up and down, head to toe, as they should. This one is great. The way that the A and B plot collide here is particularly satisfying. I do not want to go out of my way to try and sum it up. You just gotta experience it. Trust me on this one.
Ferb, honey, aren't you a little old to be playing in the ball pit?
Yes, I am.
Okay, then.
Your name is Ferb?
Well, yes, it's short for... Oh, here it is.
A very action-packed escapade. Aside from giving us I'm Me, the episode kept a good pace with its action. It leaves you on the edge of your seat just by showcasing each team's hustle grind set. That's not even approaching Ferb and Vanessa's track. It showcased both of their personalities pretty well, but Ferb in particular got to flex his adaptability. He spent the whole episode following her around without feeling like he's trailing. He assists without taking the steering wheel. He was on the ball the entire time, and people don't really think about it, but I have to imagine this episode was kind of about his independence too. The fact that they benched his other half the way they did just kind of proves it.
Ferb, you gotta try this chair. I can't feel my brain.
Honestly, I think this is a crazy smart choice, but it's also hilarious. You have the one guy that drives the activities from dawn till dusk, all day, every day. And the one thing that keeps him grounded in this scenario is a friggin' massage chair. It's beautiful. They're kind of taking the piss in some way. It's pretty good. A lot of people don't like what this episode fed into. Understandable, definitely valid. But if anything, I think reading it in a more individualist context is more appropriate to the story being told. It's a really strong story all around.
This is an actual living creature that uses carrots for food instead of science experiments.
So why is he wearing a tutu?
He likes it!
This one's not really on my radar. Other than a few solid gags, not much holding me here. The only thing of note that I would really have to add is that this would be the canonical debut of the other Agent P. The most important one, of course. Planty the potted plant. Dennis could have gone on to be a significant foil within Perry's framework, but at the same time, I'm not exactly reeling from the revelation that they did nothing with him up until the very, very end of the first run. I don't know. I mean, it's just there. It's fine.
Hi, Phineas. What you doing?
Well, I think we're gonna build a spa. What do you say, Ferb? It'll give you a chance to do your seaweed rap. You know. Yeah.
Okay.
Another decent enough Candace and Stacy feature. As repetitive as this lesson kinda is, we would not have this bomb-ass rap without it, so I'll give it a pass this one time. Personally, I think Mr. Fluffy Pants deserves another episode to shine. I think he was robbed of time here. It's a grave sign of disrespect. He's really fucking shit up over there. Deserved a little more time, a little more love. Otherwise, perfectly middle of the road episode.
Never! Never! Never!
Well, at least we know she mellows with age.
The dystopian world is a lot of fun to be immersed in. Like, conceptually, it's terrifying. Aesthetically, kinda appealing. Old man Dictator Schmertz is more endearing than he normally would be, despite all the damage that he's caused. Still don't know how he managed to vacuum seal all those children into little capsules. It's crazy. Futures assigned to the Flynn Fletcher kids sound badass, and I am still mad to this day that they didn't give us a slightly bigger peek behind the curtain, especially at this point, since it is 104% likely that everything shown here was retconned. Obviously, there's a lot more done with time travel elements later on, so it does kind of take away from the impact of this episode. Disappointing, but I guess there's potential in trying to once again mend the timeline. Maybe a half-hour joint where Phineas and Ferb jump through various timelines or get caught up trying to fix some. It's a whole commentary about taking control of your fate or something like that. But in general, this was a fitting, albeit outdated look into the future.
Hey, where's Perry?
He's doing a special appearance on a music video clip show.
Well, good for him.
You know, cartoon clip shows are never usually high up on the totem pole, but I think this one is a welcome exception. I remember watching this live at a time where I wasn't yet 6 feet deep into this kooky little cartoon show. I remember half of my picks not making the top 10 and being significantly miffed. I don't think it changed my outlook on life or anything, but it is the first time I remembered a clip show of any cartoon being that fun or engaging. Obviously, it only takes the top tier bangers from the first season, but by this point, there were plenty of other songs that probably could have considered audience favorites. So in that way, it was humbling to see those early bops being acknowledged. What I found most interesting was that out of the songs that were picked, the vast majority of them were kid-centric. For as much commentary is espoused today about how really the show is skewed towards the B-plot and they're the ones carrying everything, all of these songs were centered around the 3 Flynn Fletcher kids. Kids all across the country did that, even in the midst of some pretty good doof bangers. They uplifted songs that, while probably not the most explosive in popularity, were wholly significant to the story of those 3. A wholesome reminder of just how central they are to this world. The framework itself of the show is cute and ties the end of the special together. The first 10 minutes or so doesn't quite feel the same as the next. They kind of just jump into shit Philip DeFranco style. It's easy enough to forget it's a clip show if you just account for the sudden and nadir takeover, which is probably the mark of a pretty good one. I'm not through all of them yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was the best Phineas and Ferb clip show to speak of. Not that there were many to evaluate to begin with, but it started us off on the best foot.
That was Candace driving.
Her car control has gotten a lot better.
Look, I'm kind of a hypocrite, okay? Every time this shit comes up, I always go out of my way to tell you how unfunny all these jokes are at Baljeet's expense. But him hyperventilating over contractions will never not be funny. So, I will take the L on this one. I don't know what it is. It's just too good. If you watch it in real time, it feels like it was made for this moment primarily, when in actuality it was made for its sister episode, which is probably a more resolute look at this entire day.
Oh, I get it. It was actually called the Old Abandoned Amusement Park, and now it's old and abandoned. Hence, Old Abandoned twice.
So this episode gave us peak Fireside Girl lore, incredible amount of action adventure elements, and the ever-elusive amount of Pinky screen time that we've all been waiting for. Yet for all this time, for as long as I have known the episode, it has only stuck out primarily because of this sequence.
Can we be together forever and ever?
Yeah, we can definitely do that.
Listen, to be fair, it is kind of a crazy thing to see. I mean, by most people's standards, she wasn't exactly simping yet, so this is a lot. This is a lot to take in. This one's definitely a decent backdoor pilot, and the fact that it got everybody thinking about a potential spin-off by itself is pretty cool. But a lot of these elements are stuck and confined to these 2 episodes and nothing more. The whole concept of Phineas Land does not compute. It's not real outside of these 2 episodes, which is really interesting in hindsight. But overall, very exciting, very engaging. I would consider it a classic episode.
So, how about that airline food?
A classic episode through and through. It's no brainer that the boys would go through so much trouble just to make Candace happy, but, it's about the journey, not the destination. And so all the cool shit that they try and put together to do that is just fun to see come to fruition. This is the home of the mix and mingle machine, of course, a perennial favorite among all audiences. The cloning subplot and the subsequent battle that took place was really engaging. I'm low-key surprised these guys didn't show up in the first movie, but given how much screen time they got here, I'm not hating. Structurally speaking, I thought it was interesting how empty this episode feels in comparison to all the stuff that's going on around it. The only thing that's really changed is that Candace is not really in the busting spirit, and yet the whole episode feels entirely different by comparison. It really does highlight how integral she is to the core of this show. If you take her out of the equation, if you alter one minor thing, everything's flipped on its head. I do like that she got her happy ending. That was pretty much the only way we could have concluded things.
This is really putting us off schedule. Ooh, that's gonna leave a mark.
Yes, on the Alligator.
It was sheer determination that penned this script. Even without the boys' help, I imagine that the end result would have still been a distinct possibility. The inclusion of that rewritten song only cements it. It's poetic. No, really, when it was written, it was only a hype man track. They already had everything they needed to succeed. It was just kind of posturing at that point. They were being braggadocious on the field. A little ditty simply meant to pad the deck is transformed into a power anthem and a race against time with a subject that's actually in for the fight of her life. The actual journey that she embarks on is so bold, too. I don't think we were ever really in doubt that she could do it, but watching her blitz through all of those badges was incredible. Doof actually kind of had a salient plan. I wouldn't mind stealing that a Nader. His plan wasn't actually as boneheaded as they normally are. I can vibe with the message. This one's a classic for certain. It's a good episode of the show, but it's a great Candace episode.
Hey, you guys want to hit Slushy Dog before we go home?
Ew.
Nah.
Oh, heavens no. Slushy dogs never get any better.
I like how low-key this one is. It feels like it could be told in 4 minutes, but I'm glad it wasn't condensed down, because we get a lot of good moments in this one, mainly from that montage. Are we not going to talk about Baljeet's plans? Like, he just wanted this guy to leave him alone the entire day, and right when he's like 5 minutes away from achieving that, Phineas just gets in his ear and he's like, alright, but indentured servitude maybe? And his eyes just light up. Candace and Doof also had antics to get up to here, but watching the bully code being enforced was a good enough time for me.
I'm going to have to ask you to please let go.
You, please let go.
You, let go.
This is exactly why they took that doll off the market.
Literally a game changer, an absolute highlight in the making. I need you to understand how solid the A plot was here. Anybody who is instantly on Team B plot thinks that they carry the show, they need to be shown this episode. I think there's a good chance this could turn them back from the dark side. I don't know what it is, I just really need more Phineas and Ferb noir in my life. But in all seriousness, it feels way more integrated than episodes normally do. And with the role Vanessa plays in this little epic, it's kinda important that everybody sticks closer together than they normally would. I'll be honest, this is a bit of a hot take. I do feel like Hines is given a little too much credit for finding the doll. And I mean, we love a parent that tries. But the implication throughout the song was that he was just really distracted by the innators and everything to kind of scale up the parenting. And while his willingness to try and his pure passion for raising this other human was the important part, I mean, I think we need to talk about that. Like, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your dad's innators are? I think not. I think that should lead, there should be some discussion led from that. This actually may be one of my personal favorites, and I know I'm not alone on that front just because of the plot around the missing doll. But there's just like so many little nuggets of gold in here. This is kind of the show that people fell in love with. And it was great revisiting this little slice of history. Genuinely kind of head empty about this one. The only thing that really stuck out to me was Grandpa Fletcher eating it on Ferb's skateboard. That was really it. And of course the song, which is certainly a song.
You want to see what a real dancer looks like? Then here you go.
There's definitely episodes that get more done than this one, but I do kind of consider it a classic. The boys do not play with cheat codes, but they do play with exoskeletons, so the A and B plot didn't even really get a chance to merge. They were involved from the start, and all of the ensuing chaos is just solid entertainment. I don't think we expected anything less than the resolution that we got, but of course, it was nice to see regardless.
I wonder what would make someone want to build something to destroy romance in the first place.
Well, if you reverse engineer the human heart, you're bound to find love at its core.
And gross, smushy red stuff.
Yes, love and gross, smushy red stuff.
See, this is one of those episodes where I don't really recall the sum total of its brilliance, but in isolation, if you pick out the select few parts, it just makes the whole experience worth it. I doubt that many people remember it by itself. They might remember the song, they might remember this very odd machine in the backyard. Not much else. I am kind of glad that nobody remembers it, and by virtue, the love triangle that it tries to set up, I don't know why they went in this direction. It's one of those that subverts expectations as well, but the weird-ass antics that it gets you roped into are more than enough to keep you on your toes. In the following season, there's an episode that everybody considers to be like the weirdest episode of the show through its entire run. And I mean, I get why that is, but I think this one probably does a better job of nailing that simple zaniness that the show is well renowned for. I barely remember the time that I had with it, but I know that it was a damn good one.
Did anybody see it?
Why did it go back down?
Perhaps the lost city of Atlantis wanted to stay lost.
Yeah, it's totally fine. Completely serviceable. Probably not in my top 20, but it has a lot of energy to it. That pattern song is crazy. I have no idea why they chose to stick with that. Not many pattern songs in the history of this franchise. I doubt that they're gonna add many on as time goes by, but this one is pretty impressive. Irving actually kind of made me laugh. That's a technical achievement. I did not expect for that to happen.
Ferb, are you thinking what I'm thinking? As usual, we're... Oh! Man, no, that's not at all what I was thinking. Oh, dude! Oh, yeah, that's it.
You know, I actually put off screening this one for a long time. Cartoon Christmas specials tend to be pretty solid, but they tend to hit on the same beats, and I didn't want to feel like I was watching something repetitive, especially not with this show. So it took me a while to get around to it, but oh my god, it aged so much better than I thought it did. It was a relief. It was so funny. It was so heartfelt. It had me falling out of my chair a couple times. It was amazing. Watching this is just unbridled joy. Apparently, I wrote this all the way back in August, but I was feeling it. I had that Christmas feeling. There's only one minor quibble that I did notice and I did want to bring up, was that, well, it was admirable that they gave Phineas this whole subplot. It wasn't fully realized. Obviously, him coping with the mix-up up north was probably supposed to push him emotionally and characteristically, but considering how quickly he and everyone else moved to get everything cleared up, I can definitely understand. I think it would have been interesting to hold on it longer, but for what we got, you know, I can't complain. It was still a very compelling conflict for, maybe the 90 seconds that it was relevant. I can't really tell you how this stacks up to other Christmas specials, but I can recall this being a big deal for its time. I think it was the first Phineas and Ferb anything to be given the primetime treatment. After you got the boys canvassing the annual Disney Christmas parade, you could cozy up to the fireplace and watch this at night on ABC, in between segments where you get to see Phineas and Ferb interviewing everyone and anyone they chose, including Miss Piggy. Yes, that happened. It was one of the highest rated telecasts at the time, and for Disney XD, it definitely broke records. For as much as the numbers can beef up its reputation, I would certainly say that it delivered purely on Christmas spirit alone. And that is what matters.
So I asked Jeremy if he was going to the festival, and he's like, yeah, are you going to the festival? And then I go, hey!
Not really feeling this one. Feels like a retread of No More Bunny Business, at least as far as the A plot goes. Can't really tell you the B plot was holding it down either. It's weird because the boys can definitely build things that are useful, that also can be fun, but these two times, you know, it's just a swing and a miss. Certainly not a bad invention in practice, just not as fun to watch.
What about the ice sculpture with all our great adventures?
They say the step you're about to take is the beginning of your greatest adventure yet.
Little corny there, bro.
Just teeing up the song.
No, pretty solid one. I've always found it to be particularly memorable, especially for the last 2 minutes or so. It's a really nice way to wrap everything up. I don't want to get too deep into Doof's plot, because it feels like something that someone would have commissioned online, and I don't want to know that person. But the way that he got boxed into his own trap it's on brand for him, but it's still kind of funny. I find it mildly disappointing that nobody has seemingly attempted to recreate the chicken cake. It's a tragedy. I think we need to resolve this right now. Somebody can draft up the blueprints. It'll take like a day.
Bubblegum, running in the sack. Hop to the finish and don't look back. Bubblegum, running in the sack.
Hop to the finish and don't look back.
The concept of this one is just insane, and I really do wonder why this one is swerved. This is like 6 Tumblr posts in one, but it almost never gets brought up. Personally, I don't find the prospect of Carl apparently commissioning these robot versions of this family that strange. Obviously, the whole translation issue would imply that somebody overseas built it, either in Belgium or in the Netherlands itself. So, I mean, you know, he has connections out there. Clearly somebody else was down with this idea. If anything, I just kind of see this as masterful setup for a special that we'll get to in another season or so. You probably know the one. But I do find it funny that Agent P has been with his family for probably about 5 years, if we're going by the movie's timeline. And you only came up with 2 or 3 phrases for this man. I don't get it. How would any of the other four blend into society? Though honestly, I think they could have avoided all this if they had just asked Lawrence to not say anything, which I think he would totally be down for. He's just that chill? Clearly you don't know this family well enough. That was totally an option for you. But otherwise, it's a very sweet episode. Again, the ones that focus on Lawrence, few and far in between, but always a treat to watch. And this one is definitely no exception.
Niagara Falls? Know anything about that, Ferbmeister?
It's over 167 feet high. It's also tremendously popular with daredevils.
Ferb, I know what we're gonna do today.
From a character building perspective, this one's pretty cool. I would also like to thank it for gifting me one of my personal favorite songs, along with this very specific design for a mud flap. Honestly, I don't think much of this work would be difficult for Candace to achieve any other time, but obviously when she's in busting mode, not exactly in the right headspace for this type of dirty work. This one's kind of interesting because for the longest time, I had a gif on hand of Candace attempting to win over the boys. It's a very well-composed sequence, might I add. And I figured it came from Season 3. It was smack dab in the middle of this. Generally, it's pretty solid. Nothing to write home about by most standards, but it's still pretty good.
So, Ferb, you don't talk much, do you?
Actually,
what's that over there?
A much-needed Carl episode, if I do say so myself. It was really nice just seeing him get to stretch the legs and hang out with the kids. I do find the setup to be ridiculous. Like, you're telling me that this guy doesn't show initiative in any sense of the word? He definitely gets a little more snarky as time goes on, wants to put up with monogram shit less and less. But this whole time, he's been carrying the organization without getting paid. Structurally, the episode is balanced pretty well. A main premise like this would easily skew everything, but considering the tasks that everyone was given, this didn't really feel out of place or anything. It's not personally high up there for me, but it definitely holds its own.
Wait, no, Buford, no, please don't! I was going to eat those jelly donuts.
Missed you, Baljeet.
Right back at you, buddy.
And thus the universe is balanced.
This episode crawled so bully bromance breakup could walk. It is unequivocally the precursor to that, and nobody brings it up as such. Why? Watching Buford stumble through the rest of his bullying activities while Eugene tries to live up to his former nerd's potential is nuts. He's not getting the job done exactly, but doesn't stop it from being mildly entertaining. The whole spiel related to tri-state unification was kind of glossed over. I would like to explore this lore at some point, if possible. As such, Buford's subplot about learning the true meaning of unification, it's a little stunted. I would say that it kind of functions as a Buford character study, but I don't think it quite extends far enough to give it that designation. It definitely gives you enough nuggets to really think about it, though. Like, this whole thing was kicked off by him leaving in a huff because of some unrelated bullshit. Like, the conflict isn't even palatable. It's not even really related to Baljeet. And as such, the rest of the episode, Baljeet's vibing. Like, he has no worries, basically. Like, he misses his bully, but at the same time, he's just living his best life. This has nothing to do with him. The last 90 seconds or so, pretty cool, pretty memorable. Overall, a really solid entry.
Oh, there you are. You know that movie was so...
Oops, sorry. I'll just put these in your room.
You know, it's not uncommon for him to become the daily namesake for whatever's being done. Becoming the namesake for the episode, a bit more rare. This one has the unique distinction of actually being an episode that is kinda about him. I mean, it is a stealth Candace episode, but I mean, it's featuring him. He has a cool song. If this were a different type of show, I feel like we would have likely gotten some introspection from his side about being different or something like that. It's a fun time, though not necessarily fruitful. This one's a little more drab. Not to say I ever had delusions of grandeur about its quality, but I can easily say that I have over-romanticized some of those memories. The reason why I remember it at all is mainly due to the whole aerosol spray controversy, which I had covered in my Phineas and Ferb Iceberg video if you haven't seen it. By the way, shameless plug. Which is a pretty decent footnote in the history of the show, but it does not really cover the full 11 minutes, and the song is also kind of mid, so you know.
Space adventure, an adventure in... Know what, Ferb?
We're over it.
Yes, we are.
Designated Irving episodes are fascinating by nature, not necessarily in practice. It was kind of funny to see Batman kind of torture him for a little bit. It was a little funny. I think I would have rather sat through that marathon, though.
This is getting a little uncomfortable. Eject, everybody.
I do not remember anything about this one outside of the song and the whole exchange about color coordination. It's okay. Just not on the brain very often.
Maybe we should just give up.
Give up? Give up? The day may come when we'll give up on fruitless searches after a mere 11 minutes, but that day is not today.
I think this is the closest we've gotten to having an authentic Ferb episode up to this point. You may or may not remember it primarily because of his extended speech in front of that truck, which is totally cool, but I do think the premise could have been fleshed out a little more. I mean, he was the dude that essentially adopted this lizard thing. I mean, it's called the Lizard Whisperer for a reason, right? Tell me more about it. Doof was low-key shredding at points, and not just one's eardrums, you know, he was actually getting the hang of things.
All right, cowboys and cowgirls, it's time to get along, little doggy. Or even a short little doggy. I'm here all week.
I'm surprised that people consider this one as forgettable as they do, because Candace's subplot is really interesting. Predictable ending, but I like the way that they swung things. And I mean, if you weren't on board for that, listening to Ferb commentate over this rootin' tootin' rustling robot rodeo, that should be enough for you, honestly. The progression of Love Muffin slowly turning on Hines more and more is expected, but I don't like it. I don't like it. They're pretty much bullying him at this point, which makes his whole campaign of espionage all the more interesting. Him being able to thrive and just get his shit off while all these agents were running loose means that he is a certifiable Chad, because none of these other guys could do it. They couldn't even protect their innators. Doof is on some other shit. He's got that dog in him, always has. Otherwise, relatively decent episode, no complaints.
You were very brave.
Thanks. You were too.
Hello. Entire lower half of amazing superhero here. I guess there's no glory in thighs.
This one has always been one of my favorites, hands down, and I'm genuinely surprised that this one does not get more love. But upon rewatch, I had to realize just how deep this one was. This one's playing 9D chess with your mind. I could go on about it for at least an hour, but for the sake of posterity, I will keep it short here at least. Great music, fun premise, excellent animation, and a scary amount of character development that comes with it. You would not imagine the type of layers that this one is packing.
Yep, it took a whole lot of toil, pain, sweat, and hard work to build this town. We should be proud.
Let's never do that again.
Agreed.
She almost had him. She had him right there. She almost did it. She almost busted him over this shitty C-tier pioneer town. I can't believe it. This episode is also an important entry in the debate to figure out what the timeline for the show actually looks like, because the Innator of the Day actually resets everything. It basically winds back the day. In some way, kind of creating a new timeline, I think? I don't know. We need to talk about it, though. Not right now. We got too much to get to.
Hi, boys. So what did you two do today?
Just normal mediocre kid stuff.
Sounds great.
Not too shabby. Not too notable either. There have been a fair amount of Candace Joints up to this point. This one didn't really break new ground. There's only two things that really stood out to me. One, Buford's monologue. Two, Candace. And, you know, that guy at the lemonade stand, you know the guy.
Booyah! That's right! Booyah! Lemonade!
Okay, no more for that guy.
Say, aren't you dudes a little young to be riding this kind of surf?
No worries, bro. We're just gonna hot dog this honker past the boneyard to the sand.
You got that off the internet, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Hawaiian Vacation is filler, but it is some of the most fun filler up to this point. There is no reason why Mr. Mosby is trying to bust the boys, but he is, and it's so good. This is the best crossover that has ever happened, unequivocally. The animation direction is super satisfying. It feels like an old Family Guy episode, but in the best way possible. It's just really fun.
I know he's my dad, and I shouldn't blame him for being busy. It's just that he always seems to put his work ahead of me. I just don't know what to do.
Well, sometimes if you love somebody, you have to meet them halfway.
So I've looked around for a long time. I don't think anyone's tried to cover this one in depth here, which is insane. Like, what? This is by far, like, probably the most beloved episode of the entire thing. So I guess we're gonna have to change things, huh? Let's not even try to pretend that we can cover it right now. It's too much. It's too hype. All I will say is I do wonder if this one is a bit overrated, because for its time it was certainly a heavy hitter, the biggest, baddest thing that they'd ever done. And even as far as top episodes go today, this one stands out. But I don't know, I mean, do we venerate it a little too much? What is it, the songs? It probably is the songs.
Well, it's just really clear that you two are going to have an amazing career in special effects ahead of you. And if that's what you want, give me a call in 10 years. I'll hire the both of you in a heartbeat.
Actually, what I'd love to do is direct.
It's kind of intimidating how much this one offers off the bat. Phineas and Ferb's commentary on the nature of fandom is actually kind of profound. I did not expect this to be coming from this show. In the time that this was produced and released, the age of internet fandom and everything that comes with it was still developing. It had been around for a while, but it had yet to experience that real boom. So this show kind of diving into it at this point in time is kind of interesting. I completely forgot about Candace's subplot. I forgot she had a subplot to begin with. This song is some of the saddest 2 minutes that this series has ever gifted me. Like, damn, bro. They were doing my job before me. I need to talk about the Seth MacFarlane piece because this will never not bother me. Obviously, Dan used to work on Family Guy right before the show got picked up. So, you know, the show, it feels a little Family Guy at points. For this episode, they chose to bring Seth in as a network executive that's listening to Doof and Schmertz's pitch. This was more or less the show's cameo in Phineas and Ferb. And Phineas and Ferb's cameo in Family Guy, well, actually there's two of them. The first one is kind of insignificant. It's like on one of the uncut DVDs.
You know what's cool? Lois let me stay up till 7:30 last night to watch Phineas and Ferb. Ugh, I'm so tired from staying up that late.
The second one is insane. Very fitting for modern Family Guy, but still, it just makes you reflect.
So?
I'm sorry, it's not really our brand.
I see. Well, what about Phineas and Ferb erotic fanfiction?
Now that is interesting. Read it to me while I eat my soup.
I worked on Family Guy for the first 6 seasons. A lot of that crew are still good friends of mine. How come I'm finding out about this gag on TikTok?
Ferb was having a throbbing morning. Phineas was having none of it.
Oh.
It's not that I would hate this scene outright or anything. It's just so cursed. This show gave you a very appropriate entry into its world. And in return, you were just like, oh yeah? Alright, well, here.
Oh.
Kevin Smith's role in this entire setup absolutely stunts on Seth's. Unequivocally. He's probably one of the better guest stars they've had up to this point. Really ties everything together well.
Are you kidding? When I tell Mom what you guys are up to?
Did you say fun?
Often the most fun can be found in your own backyard.
See, it's not uncommon to have a cartoon do one of those wacky dream sequence episodes, but this one's actually an interesting character study. There's enough people that consider this to be a suitable series finale on paper if the show were to end at that point, which I totally understand, but also don't fully agree with. Even if the subject matter is pretty silly, generally the thematic tone of the episode is what cements its legacy. The whole crux of the story, it feeds into the lesson they've been trying to teach you for 2 seasons, which is to embrace the moment, seize the day, make the most of your finite amount of time. And that is well communicated to Candace, of course. But in some way you could say it's sending mixed signals. All the people that she met along the way to Bustopolis were found on those shitty paths that she chose to get to her destination faster. All of them survived, and they grumbled and they groused, but they made it through, and it kind of made what they received in Bustopolis all the more worthwhile. It's an unexpected bootstraps moment. Like, everybody pulled through and now they can enjoy the fruits of their labor. All of them are versatile characters in their own right. Everyone except Candace gets to appreciate what they have or already had. It's a big enough quandary where Doofenshmirtz feels entirely ancillary to these proceedings. These guards are entertaining, but I just have no concept of what's going on. Overall, pretty impactful, though when you're watching it in real time, I don't think a lot of these things would easily come to you. You kind of gotta meditate on the experience, you know?
They just don't make good puzzles or mazes anymore. Mazes should be big and fun and exciting. Ferb?
You don't even need to say it.
Genuinely a lot funnier than I remember it to be. Honestly, I tried not to skip around too much upon rewatch, but I definitely ended up skipping ahead, and I did not regret it. Even something as simple as, like, the weird echo kind of makes it worth it, to be honest. I keep telling you, entrepreneurial Doof is the real mastermind here. There is no negotiation. Look at this dude. He's gonna tilt all of the buildings. It's incredibly inconvenient. Not to mention unsafe. And this all stemmed from a random backpacking trip he took with a bunch of college students. It makes no sense. I don't understand how a man basically christens his building as a spaceship of sorts, and this international organization can't even track him down. I don't get it. I also thought what they did with the dynamic between Candace and Isabella was really interesting. Obviously, the former is pretty boisterous and can be full of herself, and while the latter is definitely quieter and more humble, you know, the girl wants her credit, and credit is usually due. So in a situation like this, where she's just quietly seething in the corner, it makes the inevitable climax that much more interesting. Because they're not exactly clashing. Candace doesn't even know what's going on half the time. But it is fascinating to see play out. Buford's Sigma male grind set moment with the jelly beans is highly memorable, but of course it would be barbaric to ignore the absolute banger that they dropped in our laps. Overall, very, very fun episode.
Now, Dad may be a little geeky for the new century, but in the 80s, the rise of the synthesizer allowed even hopeless nerds to rock the charts.
Phineas, I know what we're going to do today.
Yes, you do.
You know, Doof was actually kind of close. He was kind of onto something. I think this plan would have worked. Too bad he got completely bought out. He got overshadowed by the has-been that had never been in the first place. It's just a really fun joint. It recycles the same premise as Dude, We're Getting the Band Back Together, and it carries a similar tone. It really is just a feel-good experience. I am legally obligated to inform you that not giving Lawrence any additional songs within the next 2 seasons is, in fact, a criminal offense, and we will have to prosecute in that case. Seriously, this song is so cool.
You know, technically, we didn't try all terrain.
This one is memorable mainly for the stuff after the song. The whole joystick exchange was pretty funny. Everything else, I can take or leave.
Hey, Phineas! How are we gonna know when to stop building?
I guess we'll just know when we get there.
We're there.
This one is mainly memorable for the song, to be honest. They kind of built another fort, but this one is obviously way cooler. There's more floors. The song is a little underappreciated, you know, we gotta give it its flowers.
If the molecular splitter doesn't just disappear when this is over, we should really consider destroying it.
Agreed.
This is a Kino Candace outing. The sheer smattering of unhinged expressions we got out of this one was potent. This one's pretty tight structurally, but on some level, it does feel like wasted potential to me. Chasing two distinct Candaces around all day makes for a very entertaining watch, and there's some good deconstruction there, but it's not like she's had a shortage of golden moments and anything. If the molecular separator did actually hit one of the boys instead, I think it would have been intriguing on an entirely different level. Phineas and Ferb are considered two halves of the series setting, so that would carry different implications on how they'd be dissected and examined. It's easy enough to surmise that Candace would be split off into these two defining traits, but with the other two, you have no idea how that would split exactly. There's so many possibilities, so many angles that you could tackle it from. You know, Candace considers herself to be inferior to her brothers in some capacity, and they do appear to be well-rounded, but, you know, they're people too. They probably have their faults as well. Would have been a good time to try and examine that.
Fight it! Wins!
Ferb, did you let me win to save my fragile, nerdy ego?
Oh, I'd never do that.
You know, I actually consider this one to be really interesting and subversive. Leave it to the episode where half the cast doesn't even do anything for it to be a spectacle, actually.
I'm kicking my own butt.
I have a lot more bars that I want to drop on this one, so I guess this will be an extended review at some point. But by itself, I mean, the episode is pretty likable. Not only did it give you this absolute gem, but the whole course of the story from Doof's perspective, it's nice to see that come to a solid close. Really enjoyable.
We'll do all the same things, except we'll break into spontaneous singing and choreography with no discernible music source.
What assurance would we have that everyone else would also break into song and do the same thing?
I don't know. I think they probably will.
Fair enough. I'm in.
Guys, I think we gotta pack it up. I think we gotta go home. I think this is as close to a perfect episode that we will ever get. We're not gonna top this. We might as well just cut our losses here. What helps prop this one up is its sense of timing, of course. It's coming at the tail end of season 2. It's a great opportunity for us to stop and look around and look at all the cool stuff that we've accomplished so far. No, the songs don't move along the plot. Yeah, some of them seem kinda unnecessary, but it's really about the journey here. There's no other way to emphasize it. Sometimes there are episodes that aren't as well written or clever, but can still deliver an experience you haven't really felt before, or maybe just something that hits outside of the norm. And it's those things, those little things, that make all the difference. There's a lot of good vibes, there's a lot of synergy in this one just existing. Roller Coaster is one of the few episodes to date without an original song, and it made perfect sense for them to do this, but it also helps reinforce that message that they've been pushing, right? Make the most of it while you have it. Time is of the essence. Get a move on, stop watching this show, and go and do something with your life. In tone and in structure, it's very fluffy, it's very sentimental, but to me, it does feel like a perfect summation of this world and the people that live in it and all the cool stuff that comes with it. This is the experience, you know? And I'd say in a more generalized sense, if the show had suddenly gotten canceled and this were the final one to ever be made, I would be completely and totally fine with it. It is the bookend of all bookends. It is the end to end all ends. It's a musical. But it is so much more than that at the same time.
Never so much fun have I had!
Wow, Candace really seems to be enjoying herself today.
And she seems to have acquired an upper-class Drusselstinian speech pattern.
It's okay. The giant jukebox is memorable. Otherwise, you know, it's fine. I ain't got nothing against it, but I ain't got nothing from it either.
Hey!
When we get our own place, it'll be like this every day.
You know, I don't particularly mind this one, but I also don't remember much about it by default. Other than the song and the chain gag, it doesn't stick out too much. It might partially be because, it's not in the normal set of circumstances. It takes place at night. We're not in the backyard or anything, but it does feel pretty aimless. The story progression's normal. It just didn't feel like it reached a peak or anything. Like, what was the point of all of it? It's subverting expectations, but not in any surprising way. The title kind of spoils the surprise, guys. If this were 2009 and the episode were a post-movie SpongeBob joint, it would be torn to shreds.
Security system takes control of Squidward's house and begins attacking the city, leaving the mayor to give Squidward community service for the damage he caused, even though SpongeBob and Patrick were in his house the whole fucking time and were responsible for everything. Yeah! Fuck this episode!
Absolutely annihilated. I could stand to watch it again, but it feels pretty pointless in presentation. Now there you have it, the largest seasonal order of the whole lot. That would presumably include 5 and 6 unless they expand those two. Now this one gave us 65 episodes. That is a lot to rank in a short amount of time. Let me reiterate from the previous ranking, whichever episodes make it to the very bottom of the list, I ain't got no beef with them. Most of the time they're not even really considered weak, they're just weaker in comparison to these other episodes that edged it out. Some of them are mid, maybe a little less so, but generally you can't go wrong with most of these. Number 65, Day of the Living Gelatin. Number 64, Just Passing Through. Number 63, Elementary, My Dear Stacy. Number 62, She's the Mayor. Number 61, Picture This. Number 60, Ain't No Kitty Ride. Number 59, Hide and Seek. Number 58, No More Bunny Business. Number 57, Phineas and Ferb Busters. Number 56, Shea Platypus. Number 55, The Lemonade Stand. Number 54, Interview with a Platypus. Number 53, Make Play. Number 52, Undercover Carl. Number 51, Swiss Family Phineas. Number 50, The Bully Code. Number 49, Suddenly Susie. Number 48, Robot Rodeo. Number 47, Not Phineas and Ferb. Number 46, Hip Hip Parade. Number 45, The Secret of Success. Number 44, Backyard Aquarium. Number 43, Thaddeus and Thor. Number 42, Nerdy Dancing. Number 41, Let's Take a Quiz. Number 40, Don't Even Blink. Number 39, Perry Lays an Egg. Number 38, Candace Gets Busted. Number 37, The Doof Side of the Moon. Number 36, Invasion of the Ferb Snatchers. Number 35, I Was a Middle-Aged Robot. Number 34, Bubble Boys. Number 33, The Lizard Whisperer. Number 32, Candace's Big Day. Number 31, What Do It Do? Number 30, Phineas and Ferb Hawaiian Vacation. Number 29, Spa Day. Number 28, Phineas and Ferb's musical Cliptastic Countdown. Number 27, Deplane. Number 26, Atlantis. Number 25, We Call It Maze. Number 24, Split Personality. Number 23, Ladies and Gentlemen, Meet Max Modem. Number 22, At the Car Wash. Number 21, Attack of the 50-Foot Sister. Number 20, Isabella in the Temple of Sap. Number 19, Cheer Up, Candace. Number 18, That Sinking Feeling. Number 17, Finding Mary McGuffin. Number 16, Gaming the System. Number 15, Wizard of Oz. Number 14, Brain Drain. Number 13, Fireside Girl Jamboree. Number 12, The Lake Nose Monster. Number 11, Phineas and Ferb's Quantum Boogaloo. Number 10, Chronicles of Meep. Number 9, Tip of the Day. Number 8, Nerds of a Feather. Number 7, The Baljeetles. Number 6, oh there you are, Perry. Number 5, The Beak. Number 4, Phineas and Ferb Christmas Vacation. Number 3, The Necessary Roughness. Number 2, Summer Belongs to You. And the number 1 episode within Phineas and Ferb Season 2 has to go to Roller Coaster the Musical. there you have it. 65 episodes. It's all done and dusted now. We'll return to season 3, maybe in a week, maybe 2. I don't know at this point, but hopefully I will see you tomorrow. Maybe.